Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, so I'd like to remind you each and every day, it expands our base. Donald Trump gave an interview on the BBC. And in that interview, he said, and I'm going to quote him directly, "I trust almost no one." He talked about it in the context of Putin and Ukraine and Russia. And he went on to say that he's going to talk, but, well, he's not done with Putin. This, to me, is a very interesting case because trust in love, in politics, in life is very important. And what is clear is that Donald Trump, not just with Putin, but with others, has very little trust. And so he has decided that power should rest with him because he trusts himself. I am concerned because I believe that when somebody says that they really don't trust anybody else, we've got a problem. More than that, I want to emphasize today the Jeffrey Epstein case. I've not said a lot about the Jeffrey Epstein case because, frankly, it is of little concern in terms of policy. But it has a lot to do with trust. A lot of questions these days about whether the MAGA base is trusting Donald Trump on the question of Jeffrey Epstein. Remember that the people who first promoted this Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy theory came from the base of Donald Trump's MAGA movement. I'm talking about those who believe sincerely that there is a vast conspiracy, a secret state that really governs things. I want to be clear about something. In order for a government to work, you have to have trust. You have to trust the people in authority. And I say this because I believe it to be true. It doesn't mean you don't challenge people in authority, but it means you have to have a basic trust that what they're doing is the right thing, or at least that they are trying to do the right thing. One of the things that hit me very hard in this whole question of Donald Trump's statement about trust is that if you are surrounded by people in whom you do not have trust, well, then you've got a problem. I would remind you that one can say that at this moment, the Trump administration doesn't trust a lot of people, doesn't even trust its own officials. In fact, the example of ICE is the best example of all. Donald Trump and his administration seem to feel that they can judge a person's guilt or innocence by their looks, by their background. And I have to tell you, that concerns me because in this great country, we believe strongly that a person is innocent until proven guilty. We have also believed strongly in due process. We have also believed that our elected public officials should be acting in good faith. I want to suggest to you, and I say it with some reluctance, that there is a severe problem with Donald Trump and his administration. You can see it even in the aftermath of the disaster which took place in Texas. Why do I say that? Because the question of FEMA and the question of their reaction to the flooding requires careful examination, not a defensive response. What we're getting from the Trump administration is everything was fine. We all did our jobs. Clearly, that was not the case. And I think this goes to the question of trust. You have to trust the people that you're working with. You have to trust the people who are in government. You have to trust that people are doing their best. Otherwise, you will naturally suspect that they are doing their worst. I don't want a president of the United States who doesn't trust. I want a president of the United States who does trust, who does believe that the system is important. This is particularly true now that there is a time limit on the discussions with Vladimir Putin. You want to keep your eyes open, but my question to all of you is, when you lack trust and you impose a time limit with no real end of the crisis, does that make sense to you? I think the fact that Donald Trump has imposed a time limit on Vladimir Putin is something that should disturb us all. There is too much at stake in relations between the United States and Russia. And yet we find ourselves in a peculiar situation. On the BBC, Donald Trump really expressed, and I'm going to use a term that I'm reluctant to use, that there is a certain paranoia. There was a paranoia in the Nixon White House. There's no question about it. And it played a big role in bringing Nixon down. For Donald Trump, there is still time to do things on the straight and narrow. But when a president of the United States, in a major public broadcasts, suggests that he really doesn't trust people around him, and that he doesn't trust foreign leaders with whom he has to deal, when he says it publicly, I think it's a cause for grave concern. And of course, on the Jeffrey Epstein case, Donald Trump is going to battle a lot of questions involving trust. If his own base doesn't trust him, well, he's got a problem. And certainly that is one of the most important elements of the Trump administration. Trust. And I have to tell you bluntly, for those who have supported him, who believed in him, the trust factor is now, well, questionable. And for those who oppose him on policy, well, there's a trust factor there as well. These are all fundamental issues which will have to be addressed and answered in order for Donald Trump to really have a successful administration. And when I say successful, I mean successful from his point of view. Well, we'll see. We're going to watch it. But I want you to know that I trust all of you to continue to listen. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am John Rothman. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand, which is, of course, our goal. You can interact with me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and, of course, through email, and I welcome your observations and thoughts. And a special thank you to Go-Go Zoger. Let me be absolutely, perfectly clear. I trust Go-Go Zoger completely. She is the producer of this podcast and does a great job. And Go-Go, stop and think about it. If you and I didn't trust each other, well, this wouldn't work, would it? I am John Rothman, and you are listening to Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you tomorrow.